out, man. You ain't going nowhere.
The story begins with an intense NFL showdown between Vincent's favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Cincinnati Bengals. The game opens with pure vigor and excitement, but the Eagles soon get booed and heckled by the crowd because of their terrible performance on the field. When the match finally ends in a crushing defeat for the Eagles, Vince and his friend are left in heavy disappointment. A few months later, an amateur football game is underway where Vincent's friends are getting completely destroyed by the enemy team. Soon, Vince arrives on the field and pumps himself up, ready to show these losers who the real king is. The opposing team mocks him for acting like he is hot stuff, but his teammates can tell the other side is already scared of taking the loss. Vince's squad huddles together and comes up with their unbeatable strategy. Count to 3 and let him bulldoze through the entire defense alone. In the first round, he weaves past and shoves aside everyone who tries to grab him, but one defender manages to halt his momentum with a solid tackle. The opposing team puts up a surprisingly decent fight for a while, but Vince makes sure they do not score a single point thanks to his endless stamina and explosive top speed, sealing the win for his boys. Later, he walks back home still riding that high until he notices the expression on his wife Sharon's face. She is clearly disappointed that he spends his time playing sports instead of searching for a stable job. Her frustration boils over because working as a substitute teacher during the day and a bartender at night is not enough to pay their bills. Vince promises that he will fix everything soon.
The school's giving you what, 2 days a week substitute teaching?
Things are gonna get better, all right? I promise.
But the very next morning, he reaches the school and learns that he got fired. On that same day, news breaks that the Eagles have hired a new head coach, Richard, a man expected to drag the team back to success with his innovative strategies. That night at the bar, Vince asks his friend and owner Max if he can take on more shifts, and Max gladly agrees. Just then, the entire place erupts when they hear the shocking announcement that the Eagles' new coach is holding open tryouts where anyone in the state is allowed to compete. The moment he hears it, Vince's friends push him to give it a shot because of his top-tier football talent. Their encouragement finally convinces him, and he heads home with hope, only to freeze when he sees his front door standing wide open. He rushes inside and calls out for his wife, but the only thing waiting for him is her letter lying on the floor. After reading what she wrote, he has a complete mental breakdown and drops to his knees, questioning every decision that led him to this point. The next night, he returns to the bar, hoping to drown his sadness in alcohol, where a pretty blonde bartender is drawing everyone's attention. The mood shifts the instant he walks in and apologizes for being late to work. Max tells him it is not a problem and introduces him to his cousin Janet, who covered his shift. He also warns the grumpy regulars not to disrespect the New York Giants in front of her because she is a die-hard fan.
My cousin, who is from New York, is a New York Giants fan.
Soon after that, Janet starts rubbing the Eagles' brutal loss to the Giants in everyone's faces and gets the whole group heated. Vincent's friend Tommy brings up the open tryouts and says Vince should sign up and make the Eagles great again. Vince insists he has no intention of applying, but the entire gang keeps pushing since the only excuse is his age. Completely drunk, his friend Johnny accidentally mentions his wife leaving him and instantly kills the atmosphere. Enraged and humiliated, Vince storms out of the bar without looking back. Outside, Tommy explains that Johnny is depressed because he is jobless. Pete lost his brother in the war and then shares his own struggles too. With that said, his best friend convinces him he is the biggest Eagles fan he knows and the best player the team could wish for. He takes Tommy's advice seriously and visits his father after many years. Inside, his dad says he always knew she was trouble from the start, so her leaving him just because he is struggling financially like every other man is not a big surprise. It takes Vince great courage to ask his dad to lend him money for this month's bills, and his father gives it to him without hesitation because they are family. Next, he mentions he heard that Vince's friends are really pushing him to apply for the Eagles tryouts. His old man says there is not much to lose when you are at rock bottom, so there is no harm in giving it a real shot. On the day of the tryouts, there is a long line of people applying, including a self-claimed 28-year-old chunky man who looks like he has never eaten anything besides a Big Mac.
Now, what brings you out here today, sir?
Gonna be an Eagle, baby! Yeah!
Soon, the tryouts begin, and all of the candidates give their best in the intense exercises. The news reporter thinks the idea to make them open to everyone was the dumbest idea he's ever seen. Some of the team members ask the coach if he sees any promising talent in the chaos. Half of the candidates are flops like Uncle Big Mac, so Richard meets with the other coaches who are clearly not impressed. That is until Vincent makes his debut and instantly catches their full attention. The coach immediately puts him on the field and sees him completely dominating the drill. They make their decision decision and send all of the other candidates home. Vincent leaves as well, but his car breaks down at the worst possible moment. Right then, the coach approaches him and introduces himself, mentioning that Vince is one of the fastest guys he has ever seen in his long career. Later that night at the bar, Vince is busy working when the news reporter announces that he is the only player out of thousands who was selected in the tryouts. There is a massive celebration in the bar, and Max raises a toast to his best friend getting drafted for their home team. For once, things finally start looking up for Vince, but he still sees a failure whenever he looks in the mirror. Max takes him outside and hands him some money to pay the bills while he trains hard at the training camp. Janet's shift is over, but Max tells him to take her home for the night and forget about work so he can fully focus on his game. Just then, the biggest news reporter in the state drops by to interview Vince, but he firmly refuses them. Max asks him for a small favor since it is good publicity for his bar, so he gives them a very short one.
Hey, Pete!
All right, let's cut it.
After that, he gets to know Janet on the way back home, and she says that she believes he will make it big someday. The next day, Vince kicks off the morning with a long run and stays out all day to avoid the pain of seeing his empty and lonely house. When he returns at night, he asks Pete why he is sitting quietly at his front door. Pete shares that he never got a chance to see his brother before he left for the war, and he came to see his best friend before he left as well. The scene shifts to Vincent arriving at the Eagles camp, where he slowly walks through the room of every player who once inspired him. Before heading out, he reads his wife's letter one last time and quietly hides it in the equipment. On the field, the coach states that the Eagles have stayed losers for far too long, and though it will take blood, sweat, and tears, he will guide them to victory. He lists out the rigorous training plan and says only those 11 players who truly earn their spot will be selected, and he will not play favorites with the veterans. For 6 weeks, the players go through intense stamina training and exhausting practice drills that tire them out, but Vince delivers in every single exercise. During training, Vince's top speed shocks everyone, and one of the jealous players calls him an old man. But the coach rubs it in that an old man just outran him again. The coaches catch on that the others are secretly ganging up on him to make him look bad. In the locker rooms, the guys taunt him, calling him an old man who wants to steal the spotlight from real talent that will actually make the final team.
Try helping out the ones who are actually going to make this team.
Later, while he is in his room, a jealous scumbag finds his wife's letter while going through his things and shares it with everyone. Meanwhile, Vince discovers Janet left a small gift for him, so he calls her to thank her and asks her out the next day. But the very next morning, one of the players knocks him down during practice and mocks him, saying his wife was right about him being a complete failure. That makes him so furious that he attacks him, falling straight into their scheme to make him look bad and get eliminated from the draft. That night, on his date, he shares that, between his mom's health problems and his dad working all day to support her, the Eagles games were the only thing that kept him going forward, and they mean everything to him. The two have a wholesome moment together. On the following day, the coaches tell everyone that Richard wants to see them all. Vince believes he is completely out of luck, but it is revealed on the news that night that a 30-year-old part-time bartender is one of the few who made it past the first round of the Eagles training camp. In week 2, the coach welcomes all the players to round 2, where speed and the drive to win are the true keys to success. The drill begins with the players racing each other to the punching bag after kickoff, but Vince is not able to keep up with the heavy equipment. Back in the locker room, he removes the extra padding that protects players from injury and starts dominating the others again. His winning streak continues until a player suddenly tackles him, leaving him badly injured on the ground. Despite that, Vince fights through the pain and secretly bandages his injuries later, but Richard accidentally sees him and silently acknowledges his strong determination. The following night, he bravely asks Janet out to a restaurant, and she happily accepts his sincere invitation. Seeing that, depressed Johnny asks him if he really thinks a pretty young lady from New York will settle down with him because he will drop out soon and be a loser just like his friends again. On his date, he blurts out that he did not expect to get this far in the camp, so he wants to dedicate all his remaining time to training instead of their relationship. Janet is deeply hurt by his words and says they were not a good match anyway before she quietly leaves. Back at the camp, Vince discovers that the veteran player Denny Franks is his new teammate. The two argue, and he calls Denny's game weak, so the veteran shows him his own weakness and teaches him a lesson on how to predict the enemy's move by observing their hands. In the next training drill, the coaches are under pressure, unable to find the last 5 players to draft for the team. The competition is rough, but Vince uses Denny's simple trick to outplay the guy who easily beat him before. Following that day, the news keeps bringing more bad updates as the Eagles continue to lose match after match, and Vince's popularity as the promising newcomer drops very sharply. Feeling completely hopeless inside, he goes back to see his father again, and feels deep guilt about borrowing money from Max and his father because he will probably be dropped off the very next day. He believes he never had it in him, and Sharon was right about him all along. His father gives him a few golden words of advice and then heads quietly inside. The scene shifts to the coaches discussing who should get the final spot on the team. All of them lean toward the veteran player because the public is pressuring them to build a winning team, not one that he believes has the potential to win in the future. Back at home, Coach Dick's wife reminds him that he is the lead coach. She tells him to choose who he truly believes is best for the team. The next day in the locker rooms, the guys start laughing, assuming Vince is finally getting dropped when the coach calls for him. To his surprise, he has a private moment with Richard and Hans in his playbook before he leaves. But the coach soon returns it, congratulating him on making the team. He makes a bombastic return to Max's bar to celebrate the occasion. He makes up with Janet, and his father also comes to see him, proud of the legend his son has become. Before his first real game, everyone on the team gave him stares full of disapproval. In the bathroom, he overhears the coach throwing up from pressure over his bold decision, but the coach pretends that he is just feeling sick. Soon, the whole team heads out onto the field, and all the viewers are filled with excitement to see the new Eagles team. The Dallas Cowboys win the toss, and Vince feels the weight of pressure on the big stage. The hopes of all his friends ride on his back, but his freezing at a key moment is a huge blow to the coach and everyone watching. He apologizes, but Richard brutally lectures him in front of everyone for ruining the gamble he took by drafting him. The Eagles lose that match, and the director reminds Richard that he drafted a losing team, which is not what they agreed on. Vince's popularity plummets, and public sentiment shifts to the idea that the Eagles need young talent, not middle-aged bartenders. That night, he drops by Janet's place and tells her that he was not ready before, but now he wants to let her know he truly wants her to be a part of his life. Tears well up in her eyes as she rejects him, and he returns to the grind. The coach works hard on new strategies for the team, but Vincent can't focus. He goes out for a drive through town and visits the places where he used to play with his friends. When Johnny sees him, he asks Vince to come and help out the team. He refuses at first because he has a game coming up, but he changes his mind when he sees his friends losing miserably. He walks out into the cold rain and dominates like a real champion, remembering what it felt like to be a winner. After the game, he heads home cheered up, where he sees Janet waiting for him. She says she needs some time to process what he said to her that night, after which the two spend some happy time together. A few weeks later, the Eagles' next match is against the New York Giants. Janet makes a bit of a clown out of herself by shamelessly wearing a Giants shirt on the Eagles' side. In the locker room, Richard gives a speech that the reason they don't win is that they lack the true spirit the former stars of the Eagles possessed. Before the game begins, Vince pauses for a moment to read his wife's letter one last time before he tears it to shreds. The commentators mention the Eagles' embarrassing record and state that this is their last chance to make a name for themselves. The match kicks off, and Vincent is determined this time. He pushes through every player who stands in his way and successfully drops the ball carrier with a brilliant tackle. Everyone's hope in the Eagles returns as the match gets off to an intense start. Janet embarrasses Vince's friends by cheering every time the Giants score too, making things pretty awkward in the stands. Under Coach Dick's guidance, his team rounds things off at 7 points to 7. Unrelenting, Vince keeps coming through clutch right when his team needs him and keeps the momentum alive for his team. But the Giants answer back with another draw after some strong plays, and the intense struggle from both sides makes it difficult for his team to secure a win. Both teams reach the last quarter at 14-14, unable to overcome the opponent's defense and score the final point. Just when it looks like Vince will pull through, the Giants brutally shut him down. During the final minute, an Eagle player breaks through but just barely misses a point. The crowd is not happy when the coach chooses to push the match into overtime, making it a high-stakes, winner-takes-all situation. Right before the final round begins, Vince reads his opponent's intention by observing his hand movement. With all the pressure riding on him, he asks the team to change formations against all expectations, making everyone wonder what is on his mind. Right after kickoff, the ball goes high in the sky. Vince runs with everything he's got and demonstrates his strongest skill, his agility. Right as the Giant in front of him receives the ball, he tackles him with all his might, igniting hopes in every Eagle fan. After that, he picks the ball up from the ground and leaves everyone behind in the dust, leading his team to a stunning victory. His father puffs out his chest in pride, and Richard smiles at him proudly, acknowledging his exceptional performance. Vince then dominates 3 more seasons with the Eagles and eventually goes on to play on the biggest stage in the United States, the American Super Bowl.